Hello, my name is Dante Renee, and welcome to the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more. Like tonight's film, 1988's Hellbent. This is 1988's Hellbent. This is the reversible cover art. I believe like more the original cover art here. This is put out by Vinegar Syndrome on Blu-ray and DVD. And this is the first I ever heard of this film. This is the back. Here's some images from the back. You can see some of the red hues that I'll be talking about a little bit. And Hellbent is directed by the same guy that directed Horror House on Highway 5, which I've also reviewed on this YouTube page that Vinegar Syndrome has also put out on DVD and Blu-ray. Now, the interesting thing is, I knew about Horror House on Highway 5, probably first saw it about 10 years ago on kind of a budget DVD release, but I never heard of Hellbent. And so this is 1988, directed by the same director, Richard Casey. And we're going to get into this film right here. And the font that you're seeing right there is the actual font for the title credit sequence for the film. Hellbent is a movie about kind of a post-punk goth punk garage band that is kind of in the slums of music playing in dive clubs, dive bars, little mosh pits happening in the crowd, really giving you kind of an early punk feel, but also kind of a post-punk feel as well, getting into a little bit of the darker goth stuff, almost Bajas, things like that. And this band really, there's a love interest within the band, but the band really doesn't have the money to keep going. And a business agreement happens to get the band kind of more distributed in getting more gigs and also getting more studio time. And there are many consequences to that business deal. Let's get into Hellbent. First and foremost, let's look at the music for Hellbent. You know, right from the menu screen of the movie into the opening title sequence of the film, you're getting this kind of punk, garage, post-punk, goth feel. I mean, just that balls to the wall. I'm about to watch something that's going to evoke punkness. It almost reminded me a bit, the band music in the film and also the opening title music reminded me a bit of the band in the movie Driller Killer by Abel Ferrara. Now, the actual band in the film is also playing music that just has those same exact vibes. You know, kind of an FU to the system, that punk vibe, but also this awesome kind of venue where they're barred off from the rest of the crowd that's beating the crap out of each other, and there's violence in the crowd while they're performing, and they're utilizing kind of theatrical and real violence on the stage, and the music really evoked to me, you know, kind of Bajas meets punk, and there's that whole underground music scene. Now we also throughout the film have score, and it's very it occupies the same world as this music from the band and the title sequence, but it also occupies its own world. Sometimes that world bleeds into and evolves into the music of the band, that kind of vibe. But throughout the film, it kind of has this very stripped down percussion, sound effects, some guitars, and it's very stripped down, it's very bare bones, it's almost ritualistic. And it has this really, there are moments of incredible weirdness and darkness and kind of horror darkness and horror stings to it. There's even a section of late night jazz, real late night inner city slum jazz saxophone. And for the most part, I would say the whole score feels late night. Most of the film is late night, by the way. You do have some daytime, but most of the film is late night. And it really has that, the score just has that late night, um, weird, bizarre darkness and horror, and it really evokes what's happening in the movie. And I would say there's wall to wall score in this film. There's score throughout the whole film, and when there's not score in the film, there's music being played in the film by the band. So let's get into Hellbent's style and cinematography and locations and what this film really is to me. This is a very, very raw, gritty, unnerving, disturbing, nightmarish, violent, unflinching, yet also with hints of possible comedy and black comedy. And it was a sucker punch. It really sucker punched me. I didn't 100% know what to expect, but I did not expect this. It was very raw, very nasty at times, and beautifully nasty, and just very, very powerful as a film, and very well paced and interesting, with twists and turns, and violence and drugs, and so many different themes happening in this film, between music and music's connection with the audience, and kind of selling out, and mixed with drugs and fame and popularity versus being underground, the occult. Crime, greed, sex and sexual power, the rebellion of music, but yet there's a difference between rebellious music and people that are actually living in rebellion. And that was something that I found very interesting, as you see the metamorphosis of the band before they make this business agreement and after they make this business agreement. Because before they made the business agreement, this band was rebellious on stage and balls to the wall, just manic underground slum punk badass. But then after they made the business agreement, something started to affect their real life, to the point of the music becoming affected, and obviously their own lives and other people's lives. There are colorful hues in this film, most notably, as I showed you the back of the Blu-ray, red. The color red being just kind of hinted throughout the film, and amidst the darkness and these and this dark club in the film, which is shown on a matchbook. And there's a music studio as well, and some of the chaos that happens in that music studio almost reminded me a bit of the Doors film, when they were recording the section of the Soft Parade in the Doors film that was put out, I believe, by Oliver Stone. And so this. The spaces, the bars, the clubs, the music studio, the city streets, and then kind of coming into the suburbs and bringing evil into the suburbs, bringing violence into the suburbs. This is not only a film confronting, bringing the confrontation of violence amidst a violent city, but also bringing the confrontation of violence amidst a quote-unquote peaceful suburbs as well, which kind of has some of the most disturbing elements in the whole film, involving babies in the film, children, toddlers. Now, there is really, there's such great stuff going on in this film that was just so unflinching and so terrifying. We even go to kind of a sleazy motel as well. This is also a story of vengeance and revenge happening. The violence in this film is pretty intense. There was one shot to somebody's head in this film that made me flinch as I was sitting there watching it, and it was also very disturbing. Very disturbing. The stuff involving children in the film, very disturbing. One of the leaders in this business agreement. I don't want to give away too many things, but he kind of has like longer blonde hair, and the way this man speaks, the way this man views his world view, the way he views life, the way he views sex, the way he views power and violence. Actually, all the guys who are in this business, who make the agreement with the punk band, so to speak, in the film, they're terrifying. They're villains, but they're villains in their world view. There are things that are said in this film thematically that are philosophical and interesting and that express a terrifying... The terror comes from worldviews in this film. The terror comes from worldviews. This is crime, exploitation, sexploitation, occult, horror, grindhouse violence in this film. All those things kind of coming together with a music film, a band film. Almost reminded me of the Runaways film that came out a couple years ago. So it has all of those genres together. If you like music films, if you like, gritty exploitation, sexploitation, horror. I mean, it's all here. It's all here. And this is an unflinching film. It's a doom-laden film, but also with hints of comedy as well. It's non-stop in its approach, and if the characters have terror in their worldviews, this film's terror is in the world. How long is it? 88-minute world. It's this world that you are in. The clubs, the music studio, the city streets, the desperation, the hopelessness, the violence, the pain, the suffering, the drugs, the violence of the crowd, the violence on stage, the violence towards animals, the total breakdown, the mental breakdowns, the physical breakdowns. This is truly punk. This is Hellbent. This is Hellbent, 1988 Hellbent, right here, folks. There's a level of chaos in this film that you get hints of the chaos that's in Horror House on Highway 5, but there's a different kind of cinematic and musical chaos in this film right here. 1988's Hellbent. Thank you so much for watching the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page, where I talk about films like 1988's Hellbent that I think need to be talked about more. Thank you so much, and have a great night.